So Web3 or blockchain can be used for both. It can be used for pseudonymous or even to some degree anonymous profiles and actions, but it can also be used for public profiles. And so far the technology is at a point where the public profiles make more sense, are more scalable, and are far the better use. But when we are looking at the discussions in the Web3 space, a lot of things are in the direction of it's all about private profiles and privacy and so on. And that's an interesting and is a really important endeavor, but it really keeps that important part of public personas, public profiles, self-controlled public profiles out of the picture. And so far people don't really talk much about it, when this is the essence to make any of the other things work. If you have a bunch of anonymous people, nothing's going to happen. You need a lot of actually very open people and profiles and organization.
Hi and welcome to another episode of Information and Value. I'm talking to the most exciting people from the internet and Web 3.0 space, and I'm trying to figure out how the internet evolved, what wrong turns we took, and what solutions we might find. Today I'm talking to a pioneer in the Ethereum ecosystem, Fabian Vogelsteller, who actually came up with the ERC20 standard. He has always been very involved with finding open standards, and he has shifted towards finding one for the identity space, how we can have public profiles that are not proprietary, and how we can actually own something on chain. We have been talking about why apps are very much focused on maximizing attention and how a Web 3.0 can change that. I'm very much looking forward to talking to him now. Fabian, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Before we dive into the very deep topics, let's start off a little bit lighter. What's the most interesting tech or gadget that you've played with recently that you like?
Oh, the best tech that I know, besides obviously blockchain, which excites me since many years, is virtual reality. Virtual reality is like literally, it's this kind of thing that we wanted to have as a child in the 90s. We were like playing these computer games and we wanted to be as close as possible to the screen to get the immersion factor up. And literally VR is like stepping into the screen. Like literally stepping into the screen.
What is the dumbest technology or gadget that you've seen in the last couple of weeks, months, or years?
I haven't looked at any technology. I mean, I find crazy that we live in very crazy times now. Not only did we have a pandemic, but now we have a crazy country like in America where everything goes crazy. So we are living in very interesting times.
Maybe to touch on that a little bit, because some people are saying that the evolving Web 2.0, so social media plays a part in that. Quite a heavy question, but or loaded question. But how do you see that? How can we as society prevent the decisiveness here?
I mean, we are in a very interesting point in time when we look at exactly that topic. So where we came from is like, first initially the internet was simply, okay, we have links now, we can look at text, we can look at websites. And the Web 2.0 was the idea of, okay, I can interact with the web, I can write posts, I can post a video, I can post a picture, and that made this whole thing interactive. Before it was more like a receiving, the Web 1 was just reading text, reading websites. Now it was this interactive thing. We are at the point in time where I think we're hitting, it all looked like it's nice and working and cool with social media and we can all talk. Now we're seeing the problems. The problem is the reaction to the problems that we have seen in the last year, which is, oh my God, Facebook is having all of these posts on fake news. So now we need to censor it and you need to take care that this content is taken down. That now actually forces these companies in the direction of being content filters, and they now have to decide what is okay content and what is not okay content. And they have a department that somehow tries to make decisions and justify their decisions, surely at all times also including their own worldview and their understanding of what is right and what's wrong and what's true, what's not true. That's a very, very tricky path to walk. And the interesting thing is it was actually demanded by the media and then demanded by the politicians. Then it also backfires when the other side of the politicians, for example, let's say in America, like the Democrats or let's say the social media is leaning more towards Democrats. And then the Republicans feel that they're underrepresented or that their content is cut or their content gets flagged. Now you have this twist where like the politicians fight with these companies to what decisions they now made on the content. Before they asked them to make decisions, and now they're fighting with them what decisions they're making. That just shows that this can never really work well, right? There is no such institution.
Is that a technical problem?
It's both a social and a technical problem. There is no such technology or there's no such institution that is perfect. Yeah? You cannot expect a group of people to be perfect. In my opinion, the only real solution to this is you give tools to people to decide what they want to see and how they want to see it. You let people choose the algorithms they look up. You don't dictate for people what is right and what's wrong and what they can believe and what they cannot believe. You give them the tools to have control over it. And I think, for example, one thing that we always had in the Web 2 since early on is actually flagging. So if there's somebody who posts content that is not good, we can press the flag button. If enough people flag it, at some point somebody takes it down. That's already a pretty good tool actually, right? Because it allows us as a community to judge, hey, that's not okay, or that's what we don't want to see. That already works well, but now it's literally fine-grained, spot on, hey, news comes out and somebody needs to decide if this is now okay or not okay. The problem is there's no such thing like the ultimate true institution that knows it all and can check all the facts. Especially when it's about world events, you never really know what is really going on, except you are there, right? And there is media, and there is bloggers, and there is people who are close to the action, and there are people who are far away from the action. Everybody just spins a story. There is no real way for us to know exactly what's true until we take time, look at it over many, many months and weeks, and start to make a real decision. Problem is, now they're expected to constantly come up with a judgment immediately, right? Correct content, good content, bad content, fake news, not fake news. That's wrong. We have to give people the tools that they can decide what they want to see and how they want to see it.
What can be those tools? Because if I'm looking at a very specific topic like blockchain, I think I can make a judgment call there in some cases. But when it comes to different topics that I'm not knowledgeable about, I need experts to kind of guide me. How could you build in this filter? What could be mechanisms for doing that, for providing this filter?
Yeah, so there can still be experts and people you choose to trust. Like we do trust people. We do trust the news channel. We do trust like certain people in social media. It's not that these people they will still exist. But to have the choice which one you pick and that then influencing the content you are seeing is very narrow right now. I think the way of how this can go, and that really leads us to Web3 and where this is all going. First off, we need proper public profiles. We need public identities that exist outside of a platform. Because if my public identity sits on Facebook, Facebook is in charge. If my public identity sits on Twitter, Twitter's in charge. And I can be right or wrong, but if they have a bad day and think, hey, this guy, I don't like him, blah, 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 your content is gone, your account is gone, be it right or wrong, right? So we need these independent identities. That's what blockchain can provide. So you can have public profiles sitting on the blockchain being fully controlled and only controlled by the individual or the organization that represents it. And on the other hand, we need certain content verification. For example, if somebody produces something, if I'm a journalist and I have a public profile that's blockchain based, I can now produce content and I can digitally sign the content I produced. So now for everybody it's clear this was a video produced by me, because you can always reference it back to the public.
That's kind of
profile.
counterintuitive if you coming from a Web3 angle and you tell people out there like, hey, blockchain can be used to identify people, and they will be saying like, wait, isn't that the anonymous network where no one knows who anyone is? What would you tell them? Why is that not a conflict here?
So that's exactly what I'm saying about, or talking about public profiles. So you can be pseudonymous on a network, right? So if you have a profile that doesn't have your face and it doesn't have any kind of verifiable information leading back to your person, it's an anonymous address doing things. But when we are talking about social media, when we're talking about news, information, all of those things, you want to have a public profile, right? I mean, a journalist who is anonymous is just irrelevant, because like anybody can say anything, right? You want to have people that build up reputation publicly.
One difference that you could also see with the evolving Web 2 is the declining publishing side of the market. And I mean, we briefly talked about this before this interview, the impact that advertisement has on the free internet has its negative effects on the publisher business. Do you see, like, also coming back to the topic we just talked about, do you see that this had an influence on the situation or the current climate we are in society?
Probably. I mean, the problem is that the internet's business model is attention, right? So the only thing you can make money with in the internet today, because the internet does not have a value layer, or at least, let's say, so far until now, is that you can make advertisement, right? Almost every app, almost every business startup that makes an application counts with the fact to have a lot of users. Having a lot of users means a lot of eyeballs. Having a lot of eyeballs means advertisers are interested in the platform. And that literally is the end goal of almost every application. That, on the other hand, also leads to this reverse mechanism, that actually the ones who are in charge are the advertisers. The one who have the money is the ones who want to be pleased by the application developers, right? Because they are the one who give them the opportunity to show their stuff. So it's all very commercial driven. It's all about sales driven, and it's all about attention. And in the past, you had like basically newspapers, magazines. That was the way to get information. Now they are in a far bigger world. They're competing with YouTube. They're competing with individuals making content from their home. And that's actually good. But even for the YouTubers today, even for those individuals, the monetary, the how you make money is still a problem. And what we're seeing today, the trend is, okay, if you're a YouTuber and you don't know how to make money, you go to Patreon. You say, hey, please give me just money so I can continue producing content. And there's people who literally donate money on a continuous basis to those people so they can survive with their channel. There's not even something in return besides some more closeness to the creator, which is interesting, right? But this all runs over like a very centralized platform, in this case Patreon. What we need is incentive systems and protocols that allow this kind of circulation of value and this somehow feedback loop also to the people who are early on supporting a YouTuber, for example.
You said that right now apps are inclined to optimize for attention, right? Because this is what is going to monetize their product. How could a different world look like? Like, how can you get back to creating value for the user instead of creating value for advertisers?
I think eventually applications will be more like interfaces that you pick and choose, while the data, the user accounts, and whatever is going on within this is protocolized and is running on a more decentralized infrastructure.
Can you make that specific? Can you pick an example just to make it more concrete?
Think of having a Twitter where there's 3 Twitter apps all showing the same feed. But each app can look different, and each app can also can decide to show different feeds in a different way. They're all using the same feed data. They're all using the same user accounts, but they show the feed in whatever way the user likes. So then people can choose, oh, I like this app more because it has a different algorithm, or it has a different way of how it presents it, or I have an extra feature here which I don't have there. But the data shown and the data posted sits independent of all of these apps. It sits on a blockchain infrastructure or on a decentralized data infrastructure, literally away from the control of any of those interfaces. So the interfaces become what they actually are. They're just interfaces, right? And then the control is not anymore within one single company that controls now data and interface, and therefore it's the only funnel into this feed, for example, into this data. And the purpose is different. Maybe these interfaces have to be also differently financed. Maybe they're more open source financed. Maybe they're more on a donation basis. There have to be different ways of how an app now makes money if they don't control the data anymore.
Let's talk a little bit about user data. That's something that's also important to you. You've proposed a standard around it. I mean, it's something that has come under scrutiny when we're thinking about like the GDPR directive that was picked up in California as well. Can you elaborate on this a little bit? Like, where is it going? What do you think needs to happen for users to really gain control of their own data and control their own data basically?
So there are challenges and there are opportunities. The challenges are especially on the private side. So if I want to have completely private accounts but still interact in public, right? Interact with other people, that's something that really doesn't go well together. So if you interact with somebody, you already share information. There's technology like zero-knowledge proofs that could help with this. So I can do transactions that are verifiable. I can have data that's verifiable, but I don't need to reveal it. The problem with this technology is very early stage. It does it needs a lot of computing power to produce these proofs. It's not very scalable at the time. But once these proofs would exist, they're very fast to verify and it would allow a lot of new use cases. My gut feeling is that's more like in 2+ years, we will see a lot more of this. The other opportunity we have is public accounts. Public accounts that are independent of a single application, that are independent of a Facebook or a Twitter, that literally can exist as a standardized protocol outside of any of those, used in all kinds of applications or all kinds of environment, also for example VR or games, but they're 100% controlled by the user. Public accounts, why? Because the blockchain already is public. So whatever interactions you do will be somehow visible. The way of how we can satisfy GDPR to some degree, and sadly the GDPR rules a little bit clashing with the available technology today, right? Even though we all would like to have 100% privacy plus verifiability, it's just sadly not perfectly possible right now. But what you can do is you give people the choice. You can tell them, hey, you want to store it decentralized? That comes with the risks that it might persist forever, that you're actually putting it out there on the marketplace and it might be there forever for everybody to see. Or you store it centralized. Then you have a party to go to ask them, hey, please delete it. So what you have on the blockchain is only the framework. It's an address that does things and that has information attached to it. The information attached to it, like for example your profile description, your profile image, all of those things, they can sit somewhere else. And that cord can be cut, right? So you can basically delete that data and then it's only a shell that has done something, but nobody anymore knows who it is. That is this is the two options we have at the point in time. You give people the choice.
If you imagine this whole thing being there, like we have attested data about us that we actually own, how do you envision the landscape to change? Can you give our viewers a sneak peek into the future? Like, how are the incentive designs going to change? What different applications are we going to see? How could this world look like?
So if we give the control of your own accounts and your data and the choices you make back to the root where they come from, which is the users in this case, the power level is completely changed. The landscape of who has control. It's not the application anymore. It's not the guy who controls the database who has now to say. It's not the advertisers anymore. It's now a more distributed way of how you have to get attention, and also who can benefit from this attention and who can monetize this attention. It's more on an individual level. That means now you, even as an advertiser, or even as somebody who wants to reach attention, you actually have to now play even more towards the actual desires of the people, because you don't have that power anymore to just shuffle something in front of them. I mean, a good example is we're already in parts in that world, because in the past, let's say the 80s, you watch television. There's like 5 channels and they show you advertisement. There's no choice. You cannot go away from that advertisement. It's like all the time there. So it's not that you can really pick and choose a lot, except 5 channels. That's already changed because we have so many applications, so many different content distribution channels. Still now controlled still by Google and others. That's really like spread it out to all the places. But it will be like distribute even more so. But it also changes the power game. And with blockchain, with a protocol where we can transfer value on the fly, we are also able to incentivize content. So that means it's not only the attention that people want to seek to make money off me, but I can actually donate or pay constantly in small amounts. For example, I'm completely happy paying whatever, 10 cents to read an article, if it's a good article. If it's a free basis, even if a donation basis, you can even do this based on the scrolling distance, like how much you have to read, you pay 3 cents only. If we have this fluidity with money, and it doesn't require me to have 3 clicks, log into my PayPal and have all of these extra steps, people will easily spend money all the time.
So it comes down to user experience then in the end as well,
It's
right?
all about user experience. It has to be accessible and it has to be fluid. That does not mean necessarily that people will spend more money. They maybe spend, let's say, they spend 20 euros a month or a week in whatever content they read or content they look at. We already do that, just based on a subscription. But now you pinpoint more directly where the money goes. So it goes directly to the source of the content creator. It doesn't go anymore to big Netflix and then to a lot of movie producers. It goes right to the guy you watched. And that changes completely the landscape. So if somebody gets attention, he probably also will make money. Not because of the circumvent of advertisement, but because of a direct channel.
Final question. I have the luxury of being able to interview people that I find interesting and that I can learn from. Who would you actually invite if you were in my place, in my shoes?
I think I would invite Alexander van der Sande. I think he had played a very crucial role in the Ethereum ecosystem, and he has made himself a lot of thoughts and a lot of good thinking around especially user experiences.
Can you tell our viewers what he's doing?
So Alex van der Sande, he built together back in the day with me the Mist browser. So we built the first Web3 browser together. We did a lot of the core development or the user experiences, and he really formed the user experience, the initial user experience on Ethereum.
This was another episode of Information and Value, and I hope you liked it as much as I did. Fabian was quite an insightful interview partner, and I certainly did get some new information out of him. I actually want to hear back from you what you liked and who we could invite next to talk to. If you want to, you can leave your remarks in the comments or just write me an email. In the next couple of weeks, we will have new guests, and I'd be very happy to see you here again.